This clip of Jordan Spieth and his caddy Michael Greller is peak golf entertainment.
This is so bad, but
This is a spot we've all been in. We're assessing a shot, struggling to make a decision. There's an option A and an option B, each with pros and cons.
this has to be hit so hard to go 150. Let's just hit it right here. I don't want to.
I think 8 out of 10 of these are not getting there. 7 out of 10. It's over here.
I just don't know if it makes that big of a scoring difference.
This is the essence of golf. Golf gives you choices. It's part of what makes the game so fun. And it's also what gets us into trouble. There's this phrase psychologists use for this. It's called the paradox of choice, and it factors into golf more than you realize, in the swing thoughts we rely on, in the shots we choose to hit, even in how we practice. It's a paradox because it doesn't appear to be a problem. In theory, we want more choices, right? For instance, would you rather have a ball on the fairway 20 yards off the green with multiple ways to play it, or one stuck behind a tree? Of course you want the ball in the fairway, and that shot should produce the better result. But here's the weird part about our brains. More choices also brings more challenges. So this video is about the paradox of choice, how often we confront it as golfers, why it trips us up, and how we can overcome it by learning to make a complicated game simpler. First, some background. The paradox of choice was coined by a psychologist named Barry Schwartz. It wasn't about golf or even about sports. It was mostly about consumer choices. There was a famous study done about jams. Yes, jams. At a food market one day, psychologists set up a table offering 24 different flavors of jams. Then another day, they set up a table with only 6 different flavors. Because of the abundance of options, the 24 jam table attracted more interest. But it was the 6 jam table that drove way more sales. Why? Simply put, people become overwhelmed by too many choices. We think we prefer to have them, but in reality, they create more confusion and doubt. Here's Schwartz in a TED Talk.
All of this choice has two negative effects on people. One effect, paradoxically, is that it produces paralysis rather than liberation. With so many options to choose from, people find it very difficult to choose at all. The second effect is that even if we manage to overcome the paralysis and make a choice, we end up less satisfied with the result of the choice than we would be if we had fewer options to choose from. The more options there are, the easier it is to regret anything at all that is disappointing about the option that you chose.
So, how does this tie to golf? A bunch of different ways, actually, but let's start with how every golf shot begins with an element of choice, and that we have time to make it. Unlike in baseball or tennis, when a ball is hurtling toward you and you only have a split second to make a decision, in golf, the ball is just sitting there. And if you're like me, you usually take a moment to consider all the things you want to do. We call those swing thoughts, and according to Dr. Will Wu, a professor of motor control and learning at California State University, Long Beach, not all are created equal. Some are more effective, and too many can be crippling. This is the first lesson of the paradox of choice. The more you know, the more baggage you carry. The wrong combination of swing thoughts becomes like a menu of too many options, and the internet isn't doing us any favors. If I spend 20 minutes on my phone looking for a fix for my steep downswing, I can find 20 different swing thoughts that seem like they should help. I can think about loading my right hip and bowing my left wrist, or I can think about keeping my chest down and over the ball through impact. The more I scroll, the more options I'm given. But which one is most important? Is there anything I'm leaving out? Like that table with 24 different jam flavors to choose from, too many individual swing thoughts leads to a type of paralysis. Wu has actually studied how we move most efficiently, and he says our brains don't want the most information, but rather the right information condensed effectively. The classic example is the swing feel of skipping a rock, which is really 4 or 5 moves consolidated into one. It's quality over quantity, and when Wu measures how golfers move with that sort of focus, he's found our bodies respond better.
The skipping a rock, it's a cheat code into making the information more efficient. So what happens is in the 3D kinematics, what we see is better coordination, better limb coordination, better segment coordination. So from a motion standpoint, we see sequencing that we want, and we see with that timing is associated. And from a muscle activity standpoint, this is super cool, that you see more efficient muscle activity.
Yeah.
That means everything is not maxed out. It's the right amount at the right time in the right sequence. So from a physiological standpoint, all the research dependent variables, it's overwhelming, Sam.
So, when it comes to what we focus on, less is more. You want a swing thought that focuses on a simple, single outcome. Anything beyond that is probably doing more harm than good. But that's just one pitfall from too many choices. Let's go to another common challenge. There was a point where there was arguably no more talented a golfer than Phil Mickelson. And yes, that might even include Tiger Woods. He won the US Amateur and a PGA Tour event before he turned pro. And then once he was on tour, he was able to win because he could hit pretty much every shot in the book. The strange part is that when it came to major championships, this was also part of Mickelson's problem. He could hit every shot in the book, and yet, in certain big moments in his career, Mickelson confused the shot he could hit with the shot he should hit. The best example was likely this one in 2006. He had a one-shot lead in the US Open at Winged Foot, 210 yards from the 18th hole, but blocked out by trees. For most golfers, the choice here was simple. Just punch back to the fairway. But if anyone could thread a ball between the trees and onto the green, it was Phil Mickelson. He was the rare golfer who had a choice in this situation. But here, he made the wrong one. In going for the green, he hit a tree square, and the ball caromed backwards. He ended up losing the US Open by 1. What this moment taught us? Just because you can, doesn't mean you should. Golfers like me mess this up all the time, even if the stakes are much lower. We consider a range of options for a shot, some that shouldn't be options at all. Maybe we pulled it off one time or we saw a video about it on YouTube. This is part of golf's allure. There is no specific playbook, and even for chops like me, there are times when a shot works out exactly the way we want it to. But this is also our downfall, because not only do we bite off more than we can chew, we also invite doubt. If you've learned a few different ways to play a shot, that also means you have the luxury of considering the downside of each one. So when you are weighing a flop shot against a bump and run, you're not only thinking about why each might work, but also why each won't. The reason the brain hates doubt is because it can't send your muscles the right signals. Brett McCabe is a clinical and sports psychologist who works with a number of top tour players, and he says this problem continues even at the highest level. When a golfer runs down a list of pros and cons over every shot, there's a risk we never fully believe in our selection, even after we've made it. But as McCabe says, the successful players work to eliminate doubt by learning to commit to the shot and blocking out everything else.
You lack the conviction of the clearest decision to be made in the biggest moment, which is execution. There's too many choices, there's too many thoughts, you're bouncing off and trying to prevent doubts from happening. And what happens is, when you step into the shot, you lack the conviction, and your mind needs a clear, convicted pathway to be connected to the shot. If you don't do that, you almost have no chance of success. So that's why choice, doubts, noise, clutter ruin great golfers.
Ultimately, what he's saying is at some point, pick your shot and own it. Whatever shot you've chosen, that's the right shot. The course strategy expert Scott Fawcett built his decade system to help make those decisions easier. He looks at everything through percentages and wants his golfers to do the same. One of Fawcett's fundamental principles is around shot shape. He says every golfer has a stock shot, either right to left or left to right, and that's what they should be playing, even if the shape of the hole suggests the opposite. I'll let him explain.
Let's pretend you like drawing it, and we've got a back right pin. I get it that hitting a fade might look better, but your distance control for sure becomes worse. But you still, on average, are not going to hit it any closer because of worse distance control. And so by having this paradox of choice of the 9-box drill, being able to hit low, medium, high in all three shapes, fade, straight, and draw, you're just out there on any given shot and you could hit anything.
Fawcett says we all have one type of shot that we hit better than others, and that's what we should be focusing on. His critics will say he's taking some of the romance out of the game by prescribing the same shot shape on every hole. The golf architecture community will say golf holes are designed to entice you into hitting different shaped shots, and for years, leading instructors have said a great golfer is the kind who can, quote, work it both ways. They're all on the side of giving you choices, but Fawcett says those choices come at a cost.
I think one of the most interesting things is when people say, like, I just like to be creative. I like to be an artist out here. Can't we do that with just still picking a target and hitting a stock shot? I mean, artistry and creativity, it's really difficult to practice all of those shots and be really good at it. There's just way too many shots. And I talk all the time about the Tiger 5, and one of those was no blown easy saves. It wasn't let's hit these amazing flop shots. It's like, man, when I've got a stock chip shot, let's not screw it up.
All of this leads to our last point. This is Tiger Woods. You've probably heard of him. And you might have even heard of his 9-box drill that is peak Tiger genius. When he practiced, Woods sought to master 9 different shot shapes, both high and low, left and right, and everything in between. This is a GolfDigest video, by the way, and one way of looking at it is we were offering a glimpse into the inner workings of the game's greatest player. That's the nice way, at least. The harsher way is we were doing millions of golfers a huge disservice. Why? Well, because there's only one Tiger Woods, and as Scott Fawcett said, the rest of us are better served committing to one shot and not trying to master them all. And this is not just because Tiger Woods is more talented than you, it's also because you probably don't have nearly as much time to practice golf as he did. This is another paradox, and it has to do with time. Play enough golf and you are faced with an endless assortment of different shots. Uphill lies, downhill lies, chips out of heavy rough and chips off the fairway. When I go to practice, a small part of me wants to account for every possible variability I might confront in a round. That would seem to be helpful. Those choices come with an opportunity cost. If I attempt to practice all the shots I might hit, I am taking away from the time practicing the shots I probably will hit. In the tech world, they have a phrase for developing a product that doesn't try to do too much, and this applies to golf. You can't boil the ocean. Unlike Tiger, you can't do it all, so better to pick the most important skills for you and devote your energy there.
This is why we say Tiger was one to marvel at. Maybe not one to copy,
Right.
but one to really marvel at because he's an outlier. And you shouldn't really copy outliers. And so that 9-window drill, probably good for him, but I think ruined a lot of golf careers. Put it in the framework of a practice session. Say we have 90 balls, right? So what are people most likely to do with their 90 balls if they're practicing 9 windows?
They would do 10 shots each.
So you have 10 from each shot. Then we'll go to the course and we'll go, okay, how many times are you gonna hit some of those shots? Some of them virtually none. So what you did was handicap yourself in terms of your practice distribution or the number of reps you gave yourself in practice because you're doing the 9-window drill and you only got 10 shots at your stock shot. Automatically right there, just from, if we're looking at it from a raw practice design standpoint, it's poor practice design.
So, hopefully you follow the trend. Choices are our friend right up until they're not. We know that too many swing thoughts to choose from becomes overwhelming. We know being able to play a broad range of shots might feel like an asset, but too many leads to a lack of commitment over the ball and brings in more variability than a stock shot we rely on often. And we know that as much as we might think we need to practice for all kinds of different situations, our time is better spent prioritizing what really matters. Golf is already such a complicated game. The key to surviving it? Maybe it's opting for simpler whenever we can.